That's great. All right. 870-275-9799. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Joining us now for his impression of the session, as promised, we've got State Representative Dan Sullivan from District 53 is with us. Dan, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Paul. And folks really don't know how good you are. I texted Paul at 3:50 saying I was going to be late, and you never knew it. He just jumped right in and kept going. So
well,
I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's no problem. It's no problem. It really was a swap. I had something planned to talk about during this segment, and I had you planned at 4, and I just swapped.
That's what I mean. You're a real professional.
Oh, okay.
You know
all
how
right,
to go about that.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Okay, so you can take as long as you like or as short as you like, but what is your, just in general, your impression of the session 2017?
Sure. Well, I was certainly disappointed. You know, we went into the session with a large majority of Republicans, and we did not come out of the session, as exercising that authority or that power that we had, exercising the opportunity that we had in a number of areas. You know, I guess the ones I'm most aware of is on the tax side of this and on the school choice bill that didn't go through, that are all platform issues. Spending, we didn't decrease spending. Those issues we certainly fall short of what I would have thought we would have been able to achieve with the majority that we had.
Wow. School choice, that one's tough. Then they took kind of 2 stabs at that one too, and a lot of people. Was it just the pushback that you were getting from back home? You think that's what worried folks?
Absolutely, and I've heard you listen to your radio show on your app. By the way, I get on Facebook and hit the Facebook thing, and off we go, so I can access it easily. But I've heard other folks talk about that, and I think we have representatives who do try to represent their constituency, and they were elected as Republicans primarily because the Democrats have gone so far on some of the social issues that people who were Democrats can't go there, so they've changed their label to a Republican, but they still remain pretty much where they are on fiscal issues. So when we have issues like education, I think you got a huge pushback from mostly the teachers and educators who were afraid of their funding being cut, which was just not true. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of inaccuracies and false statements put out there. People would vote against it, who, when you would reply to them, really didn't know the detail. A big part of it revolved around this $3 million tax credit. Well, we passed an $11 million tax credit for the steel folks over there in Blytheville, and nobody blinked an eye, and it was such a great thing. And I didn't vote for that, but I understand the rationale behind it. It was opportunity. It was, community development. But so was this. This was development for children who want access to education. And, I heard a lot about, it's state money. It's tax dollars, but before it was tax dollars, it was actually people's dollars.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And and I think about the school choice, it's going to actually benefit way more families than just one steel company. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know they may argue, well, it's going to benefit because of jobs, but you look at over time,
and those are good arguments to have. But the point you make is very valid. If we're going to invest in our state, who better to invest in than education in our kids? You hear that from educators all the time. And when you say, well, let's give people a choice, I think it's over 60% of our kids come out of school and aren't proficient in reading. And about 40%, when they graduate from our schools, when they go on to college, have to be remediated. Now, in what business would how frequently would you go back to a business when you bought their product? The first thing you have to do is take it home and repair it. That's what happens when kids graduate from high school. They go to college, and the first thing the college has to do is remediate them. And through school choice, parents are saying, I just choose not to buy that product. And then the educators come back and say, well, it's public money. Well, before it was public money, it was private money. And the government has taxed us so much that people don't have the opportunity to use their private money to exercise freedom. So, if we could reduce that burden on the taxpayer, they could exercise choice more.
Last on the education, has the public school system kind of lost? Have we lost maybe the focus of the original intent of the government's responsibility to educate our children?
Yeah, I think, in my estimation, yes. When the Constitution of Arkansas and the U.S. Constitution were written, our education looked like your basic core subjects: reading, math, science. And it's evolved over time, which has been a good thing, because we have technology, we have new sciences come up, we have new things come up, but we have lost or walked away from our spending on the core subjects. And of course, you're going to hear people saying, well, we educate the total child and we educate the full child, and understandably that's true.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program today. My name is Paul Harrell. Thank you so much for being with us. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine, and we're glad that you are with us. We want you to help us do that. One of the ways you can do it is you see the number on the screen. Call us, text us, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Big news out of in the national scene today is that President Donald Trump has indeed pulled the United States, or says that we are pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord, Paris Climate Agreement. This has not gone unnoticed for some Arkansas politicians. One Democrat from Fayetteville, State Representative Greg Leding. Now, keep in mind, a Democrat. Look at this tweet that we have. He writes, in Arkansas, agriculture is a $16 billion industry. Our largest by far, hashtag climate change is the biggest threat. We've got to act. And you see there, hashtag ARPX, he puts up there. I found this interesting only to note, only for you to understand that this is a Democrat here in Arkansas who came on my program for his impression of the session, and he was very nice to come on the program, and he said that he had one of his most successful sessions that he's ever had, and he's been down there where Democrats controlled things, and now he's trying to survive in a Republican-controlled massive majorities, and yet the Democrats, are saying that they're having massive success. But just on the ideological stand front, let's just talk. Here is a Democrat being a Democrat. We shouldn't be surprised. Greg Leding is a Democrat. We shouldn't be surprised that they believe that that climate change is going to kill us all, that climate change is going to destroy our ability to feed ourselves, right? We should, and they're adopting the term climate change, obviously, after they adopted the term global warming. And then they had to change that because it's just much more general and much more easy to, worship the earth and this Gaia worship. People who think, well, if we stop doing this, if we twist that, if we, if we quit driving this, or if we quit using this battery, we quit doing this, and we quit doing that, then, it'll rain less, or the temperature will drop. And they really might as well, they'd have better luck doing a rain dance These people think that they can control the weather by manipulating what humans can do, by manipulating what resources that we have access to. That's what they believe. That we live in a world. They ignore the fact that we live in a world where they cannot predict the weather accurately tomorrow, many, many times. And yet they want you to believe they can predict the weather 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now. There is a clear and present bias in the media. No, leave this up. A clear and present bias in the media when I read articles about climate change. And every now and then you'll find one about warming. You'll find one a couple of years ago. They had one where the Antarctic ice was melting at a rapid rate. Antarctica's melting at a rapid rate. Oh, what are we going to do? Oh, it's global warming. Well, in the meat of the article, you find out that right below the spot that is melting, there's an active volcano erupting under this part of Antarctica, and yet the headline says, oh no, global warming, climate change, the ice is melting. And they don't tell you that, okay, so are carbon emissions now causing volcanoes to erupt? Is that a thing that's happening as well? Here's an observation, though. Let Democrats be Democrats. Let Representative Greg Leding, a Democrat, let him buy into these ridiculous ideas. But I would love for Republicans to be Republicans. How about that? Not just on issues like this, but on all the issues that you campaign on. But we have trouble with it. I mean, you guys go ahead and marry the two. You guys go ahead and rationalize how we have Democrats who are having successful sessions. Most successful sessions, and we got massive Republican majorities, and yet conservatives, limited government conservatives, and you can even ask this of social conservatives as well. They'll tell you they are having a harder time getting wins than they did when the Democrats were in control of things, because people are so scared to actually implement the policies they campaign on. Hats off to Greg Leding for at least being who he says he is in public and actually being a Democrat, as much as I disagree with this statement here, right? This fear-mongering, and that's what it is. And it's all an attempt to get people to it's all an attempt to control people. Obamacare's about control. This whole climate change is about control. And speaking of the Paris Accords and the Paris Agreements, there is nothing more about control than the Paris Agreements, a massive redistribution of wealth scheme where the United States, because from what I can tell, this is all about, well, the United States already has technology, so you guys have to stop your carbon emissions, allow other countries to have massive carbon emissions so that they can catch up. And, oh, by the way, your local representatives or they don't have as much of a say. We want the international community to come in and govern you, determine how much wealth you can take out of the ground, determine how much of your resources are going to affect and compete in a market. I mean, it is complete and total control. And I want to say this. Donald Trump did an excellent job today. President Trump did an excellent job today substantively critiquing the problems with the Paris Climate Accord. Let's start with cut one over there, Joe, at the top of your screen. This is Donald Trump from earlier today.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
This was from the White House live feed. I recorded it live.
But begin negotiations to re-enter either the Paris Accord or in really entirely new transaction on terms that are fair to the United States, its businesses, its workers, its people, its taxpayers. So we're getting out, but we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's fine. Compliance with the terms of the Paris Accord and the onerous energy restrictions that is placed on the United States could cost America as much as 2.7 million lost jobs by 2025, according to the National Economic Research Associates. According to the same study, by 2040, compliance with the commitments put into place by the previous administration would cut production for the following sectors.
Now listen to this. This is the big time. Huge
Paper,
rebuke.
down 12%.
Okay.
Cement, down 23%.
This is if we do what they tell us to internationally.
Iron and steel, down 38%. Coal, and I happen to love the coal miners, down 86%. Natural gas down 31%. The cost to the economy at this time would be close to $3 trillion in lost GDP and 6.5 million industrial jobs, while households would have $7,000 less income, and in many cases, much worse than that. Not only does this deal subject our citizens to harsh economic restrictions, it fails to live up to our environmental ideals. As someone who cares deeply about the environment, which I do, I cannot in good conscience support a deal that punishes the United States.
That's exactly right.
Which is what it does. The world's leader in environmental protection, while imposing no meaningful obligations on the world's leading polluters. For example, under the agreement, China will be able to increase these emissions by a staggering number of years, 13. They can do whatever they want for 13 years, not us. India makes its participation contingent on receiving billions and billions and billions of dollars in foreign aid from developed countries. There are many other examples, but the bottom line is that the Paris Accord is very unfair at the highest level to the United States. Further, while the current agreement effectively blocks the development of clean coal in America, which it does, and the mines are starting to open up. We're having a big opening in 2 weeks. Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, so many places. A big opening of a brand new mine. It's unheard of. For many, many years, that hasn't happened. They asked me if I'd go. I'm going to try. China will be allowed to build hundreds of additional coal plants. So we can't build the plants, but they can.
Yeah.
According to this agreement. India will be allowed to double its coal production by 2020. Think of it. India can double their coal production.
Okay.
We're supposed to get rid of ours.
All right, let's stop here. We're going to pick this back up. So that's Donald Trump earlier today announcing that we're out of the Paris Accords, or he's going to pull us out of the Paris Accords. And I'm just watching the ARPX, Arkansas Politics, Twitter hashtag feed. We've already had State Representative Greg Letting talk about how, in Arkansas, agriculture is a $16 billion industry. And then immediately after that was 15 minutes ago. Then 12 minutes ago, we have somebody on Twitter named Ozark Indivisible. Throw this up there, Joe. Writing this: withdrawal from the Paris Accords is an attack on agriculture in Arkansas. Protest by standing with hog farmers in our watersheds. Let me tell you something, folks. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. People act like they understand Arkansas agriculture. It's the EPA that tries to do things like regulate dust. Okay? It's the same Gaia worshipers that want to try to control and micromanage everything you do. Whether whether you want to control how water flows over your property, whether you want to drive a tractor across your land, or a truck across your land, the government thinks that they need to control this, all in the name of protecting the environment. And by the way, America is the number one in the world at trying to protect our environment, and there are common sense things you can do. But telling farmers that they need to be concerned and they need to regulate how much dust they stir up when they're trying to plant seeds in dust, it just doesn't make any sense. But we're having this, I notice, a consistent theme here from liberals in Arkansas, whoever this person is, that takes Greg Leding's lead. Withdrawal from the Paris Accords is an attack on agriculture in Arkansas. These folks don't understand agriculture. If we take the same mentality of, well, you guys are advanced enough and we need to redistribute your wealth so other people can have some, because that's what they're trying to do with other countries. We could if that same mentality was applied to agriculture, well, we have too much food in America. We need to redistribute that food to other places. And don't think that that is not on their mind as well. That's their whole mentality. That is their whole point of view here. Let's continue with more from Donald Trump earlier today. President Donald Trump pulling out of the Paris Accords.
Even Europe is allowed to continue construction of coal plants. In short, the agreement doesn't eliminate coal jobs. It just transfers those jobs out of America and the United States and ships them to foreign countries. This agreement is less about the climate and more about other countries gaining a financial advantage over the United States. The rest of the world applauded when we signed the Paris Agreement. They went wild. They were so happy.
Of course they were.
For the simple reason that it put our country, the United States of America, which we all love, at a very, very big economic disadvantage. A cynic would say the obvious reason for economic competitors and their wish to see us remain in the agreement is so that we continue to suffer this self-inflicted major economic wound. We would find it very hard to compete with other countries from other parts of the world.
That's exactly right.
We have among the most abundant energy reserves on the planet, sufficient to lift millions of America's poorest workers
this is a great here.
out of
Listen
poverty.
to this. This is really
Yet
good.
under this agreement, we are effectively putting these reserves under lock and key.
Stop for a second. I want to say something. So you heard him say we have tons of resources in the ground that if we unleash, it will create jobs for workers who might now be in poverty and could come out of that, right? So much of this, the on down the line effect could be restoring American work ethic, right? Because if we allow the global people and we allow them to have this this say over how we decide what we do with our own energy and our own industry, it essentially says, well, if you're poor, just wait on the government to take care of you. Don't go out and buy your own iPhones. You have Obama phones now. Those are jobs Americans don't want to do anymore. No, that's not the case. We're paying them to not do them right now with our massive welfare system and our massive nanny state. Joe, we had somebody call in. What did they say, sir?
Yeah, we had Brian from Greene County call in. He wanted to say that if France and Germany and European countries would worry more about terrorism and less about climate change, then their citizens might be a little safer.
I think that's exactly right. That's exactly right. We're going to take a break, folks. We got more on this, more quotes from President Donald Trump from earlier today. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
Two-May PC Repair offers customer service and support from anywhere. Need help setting up a new computer or getting rid of frustrating viruses? Let Two-May PC Repair help with computer networking, laptop repairs, or software installation. Two-May PC Repair can upgrade your computer's memory to make it more responsive to your commands. And yes, even new computers can perform better than new after our computer setup and optimization service. Call Two-May PC Repair today at 870-257-4444. Or visit them on the web at twomeypcrepair.com.
Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org and stand up for small business in Arkansas. Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to Talk Radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
The Paul Harrell Program.
Taking away the great wealth of our nation. It's great wealth. It's phenomenal wealth. Not so long ago, we had no idea we had such wealth. And leaving millions and millions of families trapped in poverty and joblessness. The agreement is a massive redistribution.
There we go.
Of United States wealth to other countries.
When he said that, I was sold. I the whole speech. I watched the whole speech, and I was like, "It's a redistribution of wealth. They're trying to take our wealth and redistribute it to other countries. Okay, and they want to do that but not us all deciding that, right? Climate change." And this is a political movement. You got to understand this. You know how people, radical Islam, people want to say it's a religion. Well, it's a political movement. Okay, so is this climate change. It's just an attempt to control us. Matter of fact, I got some text messages here. Mark in Craighead County writing, just a philosophy. Aren't we better off adapting to Mother Nature instead of bending over? Let's see, at great cost and unknown consequences. Yeah. It's exactly right. And again, I feel like you'd have better luck going out and doing a dance, hoping it would rain, than, hey, if these emissions go down over here, and these emissions go down over here, and these emissions, we're going to go down 0.2 of 1 degree in the next 40 years. I mean, give me a break. And you want us to have a less prosperous life from that? Folks, you got to understand something here. You got to understand something about economics, okay? Prosperity comes from two things: access to resources and work ethic. Access to resources and work ethic. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. They want to limit how much coal we can take out of the ground. They want to limit how much energy we can use because they think it's theirs globally and not ours. And we got these people on Twitter here in Arkansas, Arkansans, who are saying, oh, no, this is going to hurt agriculture. I mean, think about this. I got another text message here coming in. Chris in Pocahontas writes, I'm glad we are an agricultural state, but why would he, meaning Greg Leding, State Representative Greg Leding, a Democrat, being a true Democrat here in Arkansas, why would he mention agriculture with climate change when farmers burn their fields every year against EPA regulations? I don't know if that's against EPA regulations or not, but that they do burn their fields. Another text message. Let's see here. Hang on, I had one earlier that I just lost. Somebody writes, no, climate change kills crops. Repealing Obamacare kills people, Paul. Get it right. That's from Derek in Pope County. Derek. I can hear your sarcasm. We got to take a break. Back in a minute. Don't go anywhere.
Child, and understandably that's true, but the facilities, the cost of our facilities. I heard on another radio station talking about sports this morning and talking about building stadiums and building school athletic fields with turf on synthetic turf and building new stadiums, building new art complexes. And while all those are good, it has diluted the funding that has gone to the core subjects. So that's again,
that's a good point.
What Republicans, that's part of our platform, was to allow choice, whether it's between school to school, between school and charter schools, or between schools and other individual choices people make.
A lot of people were upset about that. Let's talk about revenue generation or tax increases or fee increases. Was that part of your disappointment in trying to go? And feel free to speculate with me as to why leadership was asking you guys to get more revenue. Why do they need so much more revenue?
Well, I was listening to your earlier segment, and they were talking about some of these, the government having a lobbyist in there. Well, certainly state agencies have a package of bills. Teacher retirement came to us. They had worked with constituents and legislators and the administration on a package of bills. Certainly DHS comes to us with a package of bills that they work with, some from the task force. Certainly other agencies, all highways, comes to us with a package of bills. So that's how those originate, and I think that's a valid thing. Matter of fact, it's one of the, don't let me stray too far, but it's one of the advantages of having legislators there for more than 3 years, because the bureaucrats kind of come to you with that package, and if you're not educated, you just take their package and walk down the road.
Which bureaucrat do you trust? That's the question.
And so as we're there longer, we learn more about that and become more engaged in the detail of what those packages are, and that's a good thing. Again, it's just being focused is our goal, and I know my core values are: does a bill expand government? Does it reduce spending or increase spending? Does it increase individual freedom and opportunity? And if it doesn't do those things, that's the first test. If it doesn't do those, then my default position is to oppose it and ask questions to why are we growing government? Why are we increasing spending? What other opportunities are there? The best example that I can give, we tried to pass some bills on advanced practice nurses. We had a couple out there, expand their scope of practice.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
The study they had said, and I was a part of that study, said that it could save the state anywhere from $10 to $15 million at the beginning. So in my thinking, why would I vote for a tax increase while we're leaving that money on the table? Let's first find out where our savings are. Let's first find out how we cut spending and attribute that money to those other projects, whether it's roads or, just going DHS.
See that wasn't part of the predetermined outcome that some had. It's like, that would require some real thought and debate. I know you had done it, but it's like that's.
Go back and listen to previous shows? Apple users can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Don't have an Apple device? Head on over to paulharrell.com and click on Podcast. It's free and available 24/7 because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. 870-275-9799. We're going over the fact. Let me just say this. As a guy who was not for Donald Trump in the primary, And if I'm honest, it took a little bit of time to get on board the whole thing. I took the primary season pretty hard, but okay, so is this not a kept promise? I mean, is this not a huge kept promise? I mean, he said he would do this, and people said, "Oh, this is the one thing he's not going to do." He said he would do it. And he tried to control the immigration process. Everything's gotten tied up in the courts, and here is something, that he's going to be able to do. Now, there are people, the liberals on this, pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement. They are freaking out. Tom Stoddard or whatever his name is, the billionaire. I mean, he's saying this is treasonous, or it's possibly an act of war. You got European bureaucrats over there saying that we won't be able to leave. We're just not going to be able to do it. And they're trying to control the amount of resources that we can use in our own country. I mean, it's a blatant violation. So who do they think they are? The exact same idea of why Britain left the EU in the Brexit.
This is kind of like bread lines for resources.
Yes, that's exactly right. And we only have so much to go around, and then that's it. And then the rest of the world gets to be developed.
And you know who talked about bread lines a while back?
I don't remember.
The one, the only, Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders.
He's talked about bread lines before, and that he's okay with that.
Oh, he's okay with bread line. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He said that? I've never heard that.
You need to watch more Louder with Crowder, because Steven talks about it quite often.
I guess I do.
Or back when Bernie was really
That's crazy, man. I had no idea.
He's talked about bread lines before.
Yeah. So anyway, let's pick back up. This is my favorite part. Okay, my favorite part of the speech was this second clip that we have for you, Donald Trump pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords. It's a big deal. Listen.
America is $20 trillion in debt. Cash-strapped cities cannot hire enough police officers or fix vital infrastructure. Millions of our citizens are out of work, and yet, under the Paris Accord, billions of dollars that ought to be invested right here in America will be sent to the very countries that have taken our factories and our jobs away from us. So think of that. There are serious legal and constitutional issues as well. Foreign leaders in Europe, Asia, and across the world should not have more to say with respect to the U.S. economy than our own citizens and their elected representatives. Thus, our withdrawal from the agreement represents a reassertion of America's sovereignty.
That was my favorite part. A reassertion of America's sovereignty. I mean, when's the last time you heard President Obama say anything like that? I mean, it's just refreshing. I don't even remember President Bush talking about American sovereignty. I mean, I'm sure he did it here and there, but not in the context of standing up to an international group or an international treaty trying to control us. I mean, good grief. By the way, it's no coincidence that now I mentioned Nigel Farage, or I mentioned the Brexit. You know, Nigel Farage, he was a big proponent of the Brexit. Some of the best video and audio that you'll ever see. I feel like I'm watching history. I feel like I'm watching a movie unfold when I watch Nigel Farage address the European Parliament and the European Union. It's hilarious. This guy is a huge patriot, for the UK. I mean, it's just he wants his country back. You know what I mean? And it's hilarious. The day after the Brexit vote, and he gets up and he stands in front of everybody and he says, 8 years ago when I said that Britain's going to leave this, you people laughed at me. Well, I would just like to say, who's laughing now? It was hilarious. I've never seen anything like that. And so it's not a coincidence that you got Nigel Farage now, by the way, being tried. Oh, is he the go-between with the Russian collusion and all this other stuff? there's clearly, call it the deep state, call it whatever you want, call it the people that are going to be really mad that we're pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. They're people who do not like nation states asserting themselves as nation states, and that's the backlash. That's what we're seeing here, and I'm surprised that Donald Trump is doing this. I really am. I thought that was kind of still up in the air. Maybe he wasn't going to do it. And, of course, he's basically saying we're out, we're open for renegotiation, but we're out. And so that's certainly interesting. All right, here's the last part. And this is the last piece of audio, and I think it's the best. Joe, go ahead with this next one.
At what point does America get demeaned? At what point do they start laughing at us as a country?
I forgot.
We want fair treatment for its citizens.
Who's laughing now?
And we want fair treatment for our taxpayers. We don't want other leaders and other countries laughing at us anymore, and they won't be. They won't be. I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
Yeah, that was the biggest one there. I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris. Again, Donald Trump today announcing that he's out. He is out of the Paris Climate Accords. The United States is going to be pulling us out. A withdrawal, if you will. And people everywhere, well, not everywhere. I think most of the country is relieved when you think about what they're trying to do. I mean, we've been talking about how Obamacare the last couple of days is a massive redistribution of wealth scheme. That's what it was. It's why we're all having to pay higher premiums so that they could expand Medicaid and give away health care to able-to-work adults with no children who are choosing not to work. Okay? It's the same concept here. You can compare the exact same concept that Arkansas has gone through, but on this, about an international scale. There's so much repetition. Can we talk about the repetition in government in trying to control a populace? Just off the top of my head, okay? You have Obamacare, okay? And we talked about this, how it was redistributive, okay? We have to pay higher prices so that other people can get something for free. And with the Paris Climate Agreement, we have the same thing. We're going to have to pay higher energy prices, right? So other countries outside of our borders that we don't even have control over, these European bureaucrats or these European we don't get to vote for them, but they're or India or any of that, or China, and yet we're going to have to bow and submit to them when we have no say in our own destiny, because we have Barack Obama and other liberals and people who want to give away our sovereignty in the name, which I think is completely a fraud, by the way, of protecting us. In reality, they're giving away our sovereignty because people want to control us. And so that's the same thing with Obamacare, right? Give up your rights to control your own health care, right? Give up your rights to control your own health care so that we can, go into the system, become just a cog in a wheel, be treated like sheep or be treated like livestock. Health care is a right for everybody, so you're born responsible for your neighbor's health care by law, and we can control everything about you. I mean, it's about control too. And but what it's in the name of? It's in the name of trying to, we got to take care of people. It has nothing to do with taking care of people. There's so much repetition there, and those are both people who are proponents of Obamacare or a single-payer system, people who are proponents of the climate. Those are both on the left. Those are both leftist issues. Those are both big government statist issues where they want to take something that where everybody has, where a lot of people have say, and they want to centralize it down to a point where not everybody has a say and a select group of people has a say. And when a select group of people has a say over what everybody else has to live under, there's a massive opportunity for corruption, because the less people that understand the intricacies of what's really going on, the more complicated something is. And believe it, small groups of people tend to just look at that whole Bilderberg thing going on. The small groups of people can tend to make things really, really complicated and hard to understand. That's happening this weekend, by the way, in Virginia, right? Where everybody comes together, and I understand they're going to grade the Trump administration. The Trump administration sending people there. So a lot of repetition there. A lot of repetition there. Very much like the repetition that we talked about earlier in the week. I think we talked about this on Tuesday when it comes to the government handing you money back with strings attached. Now, sometimes the government takes your money and hands it back to you with strings attached. Just wants to control your life, wants to, hey, well, you got to adopt this policy, or you got to adopt this law. But other times, they take your money in the form of tax dollars and they hand it back to you for a specific purpose, but you have to then match the money in order to get your money back. You have to match some percentage of that lump sum to get your money back. We're seeing this here in Arkansas because the state is now offering school districts X amount of dollars if they will come up with a percentage match. And what are the school districts doing? Well, the school districts are having property tax increases. They're trying to tax their citizens more, right? Because now, again, the theme for this week kind of has been, we are already paying you money to do these things that the government is supposed to do, like educate or build roads and things like that. That's at the state level. So where's the repetition there? Well, what does the federal government do? Well, with highway funding, for example, they take money from us, excise tax on tires, excise tax on gasoline. They take it from us. It's supposed to go to fund our roads. They give us hundreds of millions of dollars, but Arkansas, you've got to come up with a percentage match in order to get this money back that we've already taken from you to build your roads. And so what is Governor Asa Hutchinson doing now? He's now going around the state and he's promoting a gasoline tax increase because we have to fund our roads. Never mind the fact that we already gave them a 1 cent increase back in 2012 in an election, and now he's wanting it again. There's this repetition, and I would submit to you again, it's on the left. Tax increases on the left. Property tax increase on the left. Gas tax increase on the left. Bigger government is on the left. They want to increase, and they do not care that the private sector has to decrease in order for them to fund their big government, most of the time, crony schemes. The phone number, if you want to call or text, is on the screen at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, and YouTube, 870-275-9799. Now, as I go over to this website, speaking of Asa Hutchinson, I'm sorry, I just can't really get over this. I'm going to try this because it's almost before we're getting close to 5 o'clock, and that's when government offices shut down. At the top of the hour, we're going to be talking with Richard Castor from Baxter County, the chairman of the Republican Party of Arkansas. Chairman of Republican Party of Baxter County there in Arkansas. He'll be talking with us at 5. But of course, we remember, improve, transform. Show it to him, Joe. Improve, transform, innovate. So do you have an idea that can help us improve, transform, and innovate state government? Is there a state agency or office that you would improve if you could? Is there a rule or regulation that you think does more harm than good? If so, we want to know. We want to hear about it. Well, I have an idea. I have several ideas that I want to submit, okay? But say at the bottom of the screen there, you see on your screen, 8447 my idea. That's 8447 my idea. And so, Joe, what I would like to know from you, sir, is there any way that you could call that number real quick, and let's see if we can get somebody on the phone to talk to him. Okay, so 8447 my idea. I know it's kind of on the fly. It says Arkansas state government is at work every day to help our state grow and improve. And, here we go. We have somebody calling. See if we'll get anybody. I don't know if we will. I don't know if we're going to. Maybe we can leave a voice message. Anybody?
Hello, you've reached the Arkansas My Idea line. We are currently not in the office.
Oh,
office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
We just missed them.
Leave
Okay, hang up. All right, so it's 4:30. Wow, 4:30. So hang on, just so you know. All right, this is interesting. I did not know this. So the people that are being used to staff this phone number are DFNA, Department of Finance and Administration, Arkansas Department of Finance and Administration. Now, those are the folks that you got to deal with. Those are the folks that receive your state tax dollars there. DFNA. How many of you guys go home at 4:30? I'm just curious. Those of you working Arkansans, do you go home at 4:30 Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30? Now, I'm sure they're going to say, well, we open at 8.
They're dodging you, Paul.
We open at 8, not 9. So many people think, but you got to, in private sector, man, people get to work at 7 in the private sector, and they don't go home till 5,
They're just trying to dodge you, Paul. They know that your 4:30 segment is very important to you, and that you have to do certain things in it, or else it just won't get done. So they're like, okay, 4:30.
They knew.
4:30 is when Paul starts getting a little.
They knew we were going to call
freedom.
Somehow they knew it. I thought, excuse me for thinking that a government agency would be like everybody else. I made a mistake. I thought they might have normal working hours. That's stupid. That's dumb on my part. That's ridiculous on my part. Hey, folks, I want you out there to know that if you are worried about the ransomware, that you can. And if you're a small business owner that doesn't close down at 4:30, you're susceptible, from 4:30 to 5 for a ransomware attack. It could happen to you easily. But you're also susceptible all throughout the day. I just want you to know, here in Arkansas, you can equip your business with the best cyber security available. I'm talking about a company called iTex. iTex, they are the techs to trust. We now know, and in recent weeks with the international ransomware attacks that now people think were from China or North Korea or somewhere, security threats are constantly evolving, and that means so are your security needs. So you need to contact the professionals. Contact iTex. It's a free consultation, and this is a way for you to be proactive and at least see what your options are to an affordable, predictable budget. IT spikes can be very unpredictable, but this is a way for you to be able to predict. Let them be your managed service provider, okay? So, cyber attacks disrupt business at a minimum and are often intended to steal credit card information, bank account credentials, or your employee data. It can lock it up, and then you got to pay them in Bitcoin. And who even wants to figure out how that works, right? Like, I got to pay him some Bitcoin. Don't be in that situation. Just give them a call and see what they can do for you at iTex. The number 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778. Find out about all of their services at itexusa.com. That's itexusa.com. Back in a minute. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
This is Common Sense and Liberty. I'm Donnie Copeland. The Republican Party of Arkansas has something called a platform, and it's basically what they believe. Things like lower taxes, right to own and bear arms, encouraging individual responsibility and initiative. Yet in this legislative session, we see Republicans fighting against the right to own and bear arms by amending over and over the campus carry bill. We see instead of lowering taxes and fees being raised 8 different times. We see the attack against individual responsibility and initiative by continuing to embrace Obamacare Medicaid expansion called Arkansas Works. So what we need is not conservatives or not Republicans, because those names don't seem to mean anything anymore. We need platform Republicans. This is Donnie Copeland for Common Sense and Liberty.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts,
bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst. How are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody.
All right, welcome back. Some folks texting in, and they are not exactly happy with the fact that we just called a government office and they were shut down a little bit. Specifically calling the My Idea helpline. Now, granted, their hours are from 8 to 4:30. We have one text message from a listener writing, quote, "They must take only a 30-minute lunch." They must take only a 30-minute lunch. That's it. Just a 30-minute lunch. JD over in Yell County in the River Valley. Writing, Paul, if it all goes well, I work 7 to 3:30 every day. Not government, a farm worker. Well, there you go, 7 to 3:30. If it all goes well, right? But you don't have the benefit of just being like, well, I'm off the clock. Because if it doesn't all go well, you might be out there for a while, right? I mean, that's the way it works. When your ox is in the ditch, I remember I remember when I was growing up, if I ever had to do any work on a Sunday after church, I would try. Did anybody ever do that to their parents? I can't believe you're making me do this. It's Sunday. It's the Sabbath. And that would only happen when, hey, son, when your ox is in the ditch. You ever heard that? When your ox is in the ditch, you got to pull it out. 870-275-9799. We have one more hour of the PHP coming your way next, and we'll be talking with the chairman of the Baxter County Republican Party, Richard Castor. We'll be talking a little bit more about this Donald Trump and the media and getting discouraged. I'll tell you what he's done with the Paris Climate Accord pulling out, is the least discouraging news about Washington, D.C. and President Trump in what? It feels like 6 weeks. We got to go, folks. One more hour. Back in a minute.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
The predetermined outcome that some had. It's like, that would require, some real thought and debate. I mean, I know you had done it, but it's like that's not what they were interested in doing.
Well, again, it comes to the constituencies calling their legislators, lobbyists lobbying for it. And, of course, the medical society and the hospitals are the largest lobby out there. Paul, you sat in on those at healthcare task force issues. Do you know that every group that was a target of that took a significant cut, except for doctors and hospitals?
Well, there you go.
They're the ones that did not get a big significant hit to them. Matter of fact, the hospitals are being subsidized through Arkansas Works. There's a large portion of their money. Now we are going forward with some other health care reform with a provider-led managed care model, and the hospitals are going to be potentially some of the biggest investors in that. Mm-hmm. And where does that money come from? That money comes from some of the residual they get from providing services based on Arkansas Works and based on federal subsidies. And now they're going to be putting that at risk in another program. And those are the kind of things that I am learning more detail about, that I oppose, based upon those very same principles I identified earlier.
Talk to me about the Second Amendment issue. We had the campus carry bill, and it voted and everything, and then we had another bill saying, we've got to undo what we did, and the SEC came out, and I talked about this kind of at length yesterday, just the SEC just saying, hey, we're concerned, and then you look at the NCAA and their boycott of North Carolina, and it just seemed like, I mean, I know it passed and a majority of Republican support, but it just seemed, and I know you guys were in a difficult situation, but what are your thoughts?
I appreciate that lead-in, but it wasn't a real difficult situation for me. I'm fully supportive of open carry and full constitutional rights to carry. However, we do represent a district, and of course, ASU, Arkansas State, is a part of my district, and they expressed concern, and I heard some of the athletes talking about what their concerns are. And I played basketball at Arkansas State years ago, and coached in Caraway.
How many years ago?
We're not going there, Paul. 1970 through 72.
What was your average points per game? Do you know?
Mine, I think it was about 8 or 9 or 10.
Hey, that's good. Yeah. That's good production. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, you're doing a sports show now.
No, I'm sorry.
But as far as I remember, and being at Caraway and coaching at Caraway, our kids had guns, their shotguns in their car, in the back window, in the gun rack. Mm-hmm. We never had a problem. But I can understand that today it's a little bit different. And as one who represents a district, we moved the ball forward. We moved it down the field. We got some more things to it. We had to walk back. In the football analogy, we got penalized 10 yards or 5 yards. We moved it back. But we still had significant progress on open care, on rights to bear arms and the Second Amendment. So did we get as far as I would like to see us? Absolutely not. But did we make progress? Yes.
Yeah.
So
well, there's no question, and I'm not a fan of the enhanced carry, or I'm not a fan of the approach. But yeah, there's no question that people are going to be able to carry a firearm if they go through the red tape in more places than they were when you started. So that's not a question. What the question to me is the process, because I know we hear from the universities and they didn't want this, but the bill had passed and it was what it was, and the NRA supported it. The NRA supported it specifically because I talked to them because of the stadium, because of the freedom that if you go through the additional training, you will be able to carry in these public places, which are pretty vulnerable if we think about it. And then at the signing, the governor's there, and he takes some credit for, the NRA's there, and then immediately the NRA has to come out and impose the next bill to undo what was done. And I think that's what left such a bad taste in my mouth and a lot of folks.
Absolutely, and that's again, it's a rough and tumble process, and it's not pretty, and there's a lot goes on behind the scenes, and there's a lot goes on, as you're aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard you talking about the swamp a little while ago, and as I mentioned to you, the difference between Washington and Arkansas is we know who the alligators are. They're some of our friends. And, we're pretty comfortable in Arkansas in swamp territory. But, again, I think we represent the people, and we can't go as far as we would like to go as a legislator every time.
Yeah.
But we did make good progress. It was messy, but this is where we are, and we'll come back next session and try to improve on that.
We know the alligators by name. That's what you're saying. Yeah. So last thing, you stopped the fuel tax for now, stopped the internet sales tax for now. There seemed to be no willingness from the leadership. I still would have been against the internet sales tax, but no willingness to direct that money or to say, hey, we will cut your income taxes by $140 million. There was like, no, we want a blank check. We want the new revenue, and we don't want to be told where to put it.
Absolutely not. That's why it didn't pass. I think a couple of things. One is
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program. This is hour number 2. My name is Paul, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. We want you to be a part of that. One of the ways you can do that is to call us or text us 870-275-9799. We just got through talking about Donald Trump coming off of his Paris climate accord speech, where he says, "Hey, we're pulling out. We're going to try to get a better deal, and if so, great. If not, great as well." Joining us now, I want to welcome back to the program Mr. Richard Castor is with us, calling from Baxter County. Richard, thank you so much for being on the program.
Hello, Paul, and a great big happy confefe to you and yours.
Oh, man. I saw the memes. I saw the memes before I heard about the story.
Good.
And so
good.
I was very confused. I was like, what is going on? And then I had to Google it, and I figured it out. Yeah. Isn't that crazy how famous he is? Isn't that crazy? Donald Trump can misspell a word on Twitter, and, it breaks the internet. That's nuts.
Oh, it's absolutely nuts. But even what's a better case study is how the media reacts to this, right? And how the Trump administration still operates outside of the media. They did it beautifully in the election. But then you have Sean Spencer, who, the press secretary, tell the media when the reporters were asking him, what does it mean? What does it mean? Is it a mistake? What does it say about the president that he would leave a misspelled word on Twitter for 3 hours? And Sean Spencer just says, well, I believe the president and a small group of people knew exactly what he meant to say. And their heads just exploded. They're throwing up on themselves over this. And the American people are just having, a good, healthy laugh about it. Right? Yeah. It just shows you the disconnect between Main Street and Washington, D.C. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, the people on the West and East Coasts, and that's where your mainstream media is too. I mean, they really still think that they're calling the shots. They really still think that they can have an effect on on flyover country. I mean, they do have an effect on those who are leftists, and that's of course why they all needed therapy after the election, because they all thought there was no chance that the outcome would be what it was. But for flyover country, I mean, it's just you're right. It is a complete and total disconnect. Have you seen the stuff about Paris and the Paris Climate Accords and him pulling out of that? What are your thoughts on that, Richard?
Yeah, and I think it's another example of a promise made and a promise kept. The swamp monsters in D.C. were doing all they could to keep us in that agreement, and they were using the argument that it was the only way America would have a seat at the table, at the international table, where our voice could be heard, right, if we stayed in this agreement, which, if you read the details of it, and for those who may not know, it's basically an agreement where America is going to lead the country in destroying our own industry for the sake of the environment. And China and Russia and India, they get to start doing it maybe 10, 15 years from now. But America's going to go ahead and do it first, right? So this was Trump saying, no, that's not part of an American first mentality where we put our own interests ahead of everyone else's, where we worry about our own job growth, where we worry about our own families, right? And so, I think it was a breath of fresh air. I almost was a little bit worried when I heard that Trump's son-in-law was pushing him to stay in the agreement.
Yeah.
But I think, cool heads prevailed, and I think he did the right thing. And he's just such a breath of fresh air that we have an elected politician who's actually doing what he said he was going to do, and he's actually fighting where he said he was going to fight.
Yeah.
Right? And that's part of the disconnect, is that for so long, the American people have been frustrated by people finally getting to D.C. or down to Little Rock in the Marble Palace and catching that marble fever and saying, well, once you get down there, things are a little bit different. You have to play the game. You have to make the deals and, deal with the power brokers. And Trump's just up there throwing the tables over and saying, no, this is what we are going to do. We're not going to argue about it. We're not going to fight about it. This is the path forward. Try to keep up with me. And I think the average guy who lives in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, those states that are just have such a strong foundation in hardworking men and women who have been losing their jobs and just want someone in D.C. to fight the fight and go where he says he's going to go, the media is not picking up on that, right? And I say to the conservative movement, pay attention to what's happening here. When you look at Congress's poll numbers, or you hear the RNC talking about, this might be a horrible Democrat wave election, that's only because Republicans don't know how to win. We don't know how to fight. You have people like Mitch McConnell, John Boehner, Paul Ryan, who campaign as conservatives but govern as moderates, and that's not what we send them up there to do. Yeah. And I think if we in the conservative movement don't really pay attention and understand that ever since the Tea Party, this is what we've been asking for. We've been asking for someone to go to D.C. and actually fight. This is our moment. We have the biggest majority since the 1920s up there with the Republican Party, and we have to grasp it and not let these distractions like a tweet or Russia or anything take away this really great opportunity we have. It would be such a shame if we let that happen.
Yeah, you're right. We're talking with Richard Castor. He is the host of the show, The View from Hillsdale, and we're always really excited to have him on because you make an incredible amount of sense. I got this tweet. I talked about this last hour, but and Greg Leding, by the way, Joe, in the other room, he's back on Twitter. He posted another tweet a couple of minutes ago. State Representative Greg Leding, he's a Democrat from Fayetteville. Hashtag climate change is real. It threatens hashtag agriculture, our state's biggest industry by far. We can't shrug this off, hashtag Paris Agreement. Now, this is like the second or possibly third tweet that he's made about agriculture and how this is going to affect us being able to feed ourselves, essentially, if because we're pulling out of the climate agreement. Now, so in the context of what you said, Richard, and I kind of debunked, this whole this Gaia worship and this climate change and, trying to control people last hour. But we have a Democrat, an Arkansas Democrat, being a Democrat. I would love for some of our Arkansas Republicans to be Republicans. Do you agree with that?
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's a sad day for Arkansas Republicans, and I say that as a chairman of a Republican Party county committee, that we have a governor who is probably going to stand in the way of repealing Obamacare on a national scale.
Yeah,
we have a governor who's going to stand with John Kasich of Ohio and do all they can to keep as many, working, able-bodied people on welfare rolls instead of helping them find jobs, instead of giving them a hand up, not a hand out. All those things that we campaign on as conservatives. And so I'm sick of it personally. I'm just sick of it. And I pray that God sends us a great primary challenger for our governor, someone who can really stand up and say, this is not where we want Arkansas to go. We should be leading the nation in conservative reforms, not moderate mediocrity, which is what we've had down there.
Well,
and go ahead.
I certainly, I'm to the point where I think we're going to have to endure Asa. Honestly, I don't know if there's anybody that can, at this point, will be able to beat him. And we have so many folks who are, kind of worshiping his power. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. Don't get me, and I've been wrong a lot in the last year politically, especially when it comes to national politics. You were right, though. You were a Trump supporter the whole time, right, Richard?
Yeah, actually, ever since 2009, he was my guy.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I bet 3 a.m. on election night meant a lot more to you then than it even did to me. That's fantastic.
Gosh. It was a happy day, very happy day.
Oh, man.
But, and I think you might be right, Paul, though, because I think what we'll see is Asa kind of riding the coattails of this economic atmosphere we're going to be finding ourselves in. If you remember back in the Tea Party days, and that's where I got my start in politics, because I was the chairman of our Tea Party, one of our biggest complaints was the underemployment rate. You remember people used to always talk about that, where if you calculated the people who are underemployed and the people who are unemployed, we figured it would be around 25 to 30%.
Yeah.
And that rate, the job numbers came out today, and it's gone from 18% underemployment down to 8.6%. And that is a dramatic drop, right, over the past few years. Mm-hmm. And so if we can get this tax reform done that Trump has proposed, if we can lower the corporate tax rate, if we can repeal Obamacare in a significant way, we may be stuck with Asa just because people will start getting happier. But we as conservatives should be able to look beyond that and make the case for conservative reforms. And, just as it is isn't good enough.
Yeah. No,
right? We should be leading this country as Arkansas, and we're just not right now.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. Matter of fact, I've got some numbers from David Crow, just sent me some numbers down in Faulkner County that he got off of a reputable website about Arkansas's bloated government and how, compared to other states, I mean, we have just a ridiculous amount, per 10,000, like 122 people per 10,000. That stacks up outrageous compared to other states' government. And so it is very clear that we need to cut here in the state of Arkansas. But I want to get back to this opportunity because that we have here nationally, because I hope we can actually repeal Obamacare. The governor did go out on PBS. We covered it yesterday for the second or third time on these national outlets, and he's essentially saying, whatever you do, don't pass Senate, do not pass what the House passed, because it basically will wind down Medicaid expansion. And so we have, we do have this weird, in many cases, aces to the left of Paul Ryan on some of that stuff because, he voted for it. But let's talk about what Donald Trump is proposing because, it really is interesting. He's pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords today. And he also has a tax plan that would do an amazing. I mean, it would be amazing. It'd take standard deduction from $12,000 to $24,000. I mean, that's just the first thing. But what it does for business would be incredible. And so to talk about this opportunity that you're mentioning, I mean, that certainly plays a part in all of this.
Absolutely. And, the Democrats are brilliant. Time after time again, and the media, they will do whatever they can. They'll find a drum beat. They'll keep banging the drum until everyone starts agreeing with them, right? We saw it done to Sarah Palin. We saw it done to Mitt Romney with the dog on top of his car, and he was just a cruel human being who never tipped. He didn't even know the name of his garbage man. God help us, he can't be in the White House, right? And so for all these never-Trumpers out there, and God bless them, some of them are great conservatives, they allow these issues that have happened to every Republican politician in modern history to really, I think, cloud their judgment on what we have before us right now. You can love Trump, you can hate him. You can like that he wears his own name brand ties, or you can hate that he does that. But I don't care. What I think we as a conservative movement should care about are those fundamental principles and how we can implement those things in actual policy. And the opportunity we have now with majority in the House and a majority in the Senate and the White House, all the excuses of the establishment is gone. We've given them all three branches, right, or two branches with a bicameral legislature. Their excuses are gone. Right now, we need to be putting the pressure on them. We need to be putting the pressure on people like John Bozeman, saying, you should be leading this up there. Get these tax cuts passed. Get Obamacare repealed. Support our president, our Republican president. And if you can't bring yourself to actually say, I support Donald Trump, then you better get yourself to say, I support his policies. Because if this flounders, if the establishment, if the swamp monsters, if they don't allow these things to go through, and the day comes that we find out that the Russian investigation found there was no evidence of collusion, that Donald Trump did not do anything illegal because there's no evidence that says he does, then you will see a revolt in the working class in this country like I don't think we've seen in a long time. And I don't think the target will be on the Democrats' back at that point. I think it will be anyone who stood in the way of the progress the American people are expecting this president to make. And I tell you, if we don't see some fiery ambition from our Republican legislators up in D.C., then, I'll be right there alongside them saying this is your fault. We had the opportunity. We had the votes. Where were you? And, I applaud Congressman Crawford and Senator Cotton on a lot of the votes they've been making lately. I think they're singing the right tune, but I'd love to see more of it. And I think we as conservatives can't get lost in the weeds on this. Right, we've been fighting for this since 2009, since all those thousands of people showed up at tea parties across our state, and we overwhelmed the Democrats throughout the state like never before. This is what we've asked for, and we knew the Democrats would fight back. We knew the media would throw everything they had at whoever it was we picked. So now's not the time to get discouraged. Now's the time to fight twice as hard because we're almost there, and it's a really exciting time. We just have to close the deal.
Richard Castor, that fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on. We're out of time, sir. Thank you so much. And folks can hear your show on Mountain Talk 97 Saturdays. At what time is that?
Saturdays at 8 a.m.
Saturdays at 8 a.m. All right, Richard, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, folks, got to go to break. Back in just a moment. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org and stand up for small business in Arkansas. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help.
In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure that life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody. Watch Paul live at paulharrell.com. It's free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
870-275-9799. Really good stuff by Mr. Richard Kessler there. We appreciate him being with us. Oh, no. Oh, I don't know. Can I read this? I mean, this is in jest, obviously. So we played our 1835 parody, our 1835 Club parody last hour, and I'm just now getting this. This is about 20 minutes old. Well, no, more than that, almost 30 minutes old. Somebody writes, I hope the space shuttle gets shot down by North Korea. Oh, JD, that's pretty funny. Let's see here. What else do we have? Let's see. A phone number to call or text 870-275-9799. We got somebody retweeting our new podcast that just came out. Our first hour's podcast is now available over at the iTunes Store, over at SoundCloud. Feel free to get that. Essentially, our first hour today, recapping this, was just audio from Donald Trump's speech, Trump audio from his speech about leaving the Paris Accords, and you just heard Richard and I talking about that. So that was it's just incredible, in my opinion, what's been going on. It really is. John Brummett out with a new. I can't wait to read John Brummett's opinion piece on us pulling out of the Paris climate deal. That's going to be interesting.
There will be like little tears in every newspaper, like little smudges as he's writing it.
It'll be much more smug than that, Joe. I think. Oh, his tears? Yeah. I think you're who knows. Here's the thing. Folks who are traditionally, well, I would say this, John Brummett, in the way he writes, is extremely unique. As Republicans have taken over, okay, I feel like he tries, even though he is a far leftist, and you can, if you read his stuff, you obviously know he is, but I feel like he tries to make himself more mainstream or more moderate sometimes in order to cover up the blueness of Asa and the establishment Republicans that are actually doing exactly what he wants, or at the very least a lukewarm version of what he actually thinks is good policy. And so he kind of needs to shield what he believes, in order to. But then again, you get honest Democrats out there like State Representative Greg Leding, who is an honest Democrat, and he's a nice guy, but he's saying that Trump pulling out essentially of the Paris Climate Accords is going to destroy Arkansas agriculture. Do you believe that? They was like, no, we want a blank check. We want the new revenue, and we don't want to be told where to put it.
Absolutely not. That's why it didn't pass. I think a couple of things. One is a sales use tax on internet sales. Would that benefit our local businesses? Yes, I think but the principle of I'm penalized, I want to penalize everybody equally, isn't a good Republican position. Let's free more people equally, not penalize more people, which a tax is. Had we taken that, my default position, if we want to do an internet sales tax and violate federal law, but we did that with marijuana anyway, so I don't have a problem with that.
That's a good point. Touche.
So if we want to do that, then let's reduce the state sales tax, and that way the person paying sales tax isn't penalized.
Yes.
They come out of a level. But if you wanted to do something towards highways, but again, just to put it in additional funds, because my biggest concern is, you and I talked about it earlier, the big elephant is Arkansas Works and what the federal government's going to do to our health care, and the state's at risk for hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on what decisions the feds make. And so if we allocate internet taxes to a specific area, then others are not free to use that in other ways. So we may pull in an internet sales tax, or tax soda, or tax cigarettes, or tax whatever we want to tax. But how can we be sure that money will go to those, the sales tax, or to internet tax, or
something that benefits the most people that other than able to work adults who just want their free health care to continue.
Yeah, you hear if we're going to have a tax cut, we got to be able to pay for it.
Yeah.
Well, let's treat the taxpayer that way too. If we're going to raise their tax, let's lower it some way so they're not hurt.
I couldn't agree with you more on the concept of, let's lower that sales tax. If we were going to do that, then let's lower the sales tax on existing business owners, because the brick and mortars were saying, it's unfair if you bought into the narrative that, this was about saving them, which I dispute that. But this really should have ignited them to say, hey, we are 9%. We're overtaxed here. Like, this is a 6.5% state. We need to reduce this burden.
And the one thing I've learned in this session, in the last two sessions, you have to be able to see around the corner. Because it's not what you see, it's what's around the corner that's going to catch you. And it's very easily, just like in the military tax cut we did, that really wasn't about the military, that was about passing something else. And this internet sales tax, I'm concerned that it's really not about taxing the internet and leveling the playing field with our business community. There's something else around the corner, highway funds, expansion of Medicaid, that money is really going to be attributed to. Mm-hmm. That's why there are a lot of legislators who rightfully wanted to know where that money's going.
It's weird. We have a parody that we did, Mother Government, the one about Obamacare and Medicaid expansion, and Arkansas Works being the same thing. And at the end, Mother Government says, we'll have another announcement at a later date to discuss the revenue that we will need to collect to pay for our future goals. Yeah. And that's exactly
Paul, I'm a part of a work group that's looking at revisions to Arkansas Works. And one of the things we found out the other day from our Director of Workforce Services, we have, I think I'm quoting him right, 40,000 people that reported.
Your values, your ideals. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Small, limited, constitutional government. Welcome back to the program. That's what we're advocating for here. Again, the phone number to call us or text us, 870-275-9799. I see we still have, basically on Twitter, things are pretty much unchanged at this point. I have some statistics here that were given to me by Mr. David Crow, and I've heard him quote these statistics before, and I always am like, man, I need to make sure he gets those to me, and I always forget. But I mean, I saw on Twitter, Janet Crow, his wife, was tweeting about him, talking about these statistics, and so I asked for them finally, as I've been meaning to do for a long time. These are employment data from, comparing different states to other states, from governing.com. It's a fantastic website because it's just data on government and state governments and federal governments, national, just, governing. It's about governing, right? By the way, real conservatives have the guts to govern. And when you raise taxes, you're doing that because you don't have the guts to govern. It's the truth. You don't possess the intestinal fortitude to govern when you advocate to raise taxes, because again, we have already given you money to do the things that you're wanting to raise taxes to do. We're already paying you to do these things. Now, this argument of mine, that we are already paying you to do these things, is supported by these government statistics. You know how many employees state of Arkansas has per 10,000 people? For every 10,000, these are 2015 numbers, for every 10,000 people in the state of Arkansas employees 122 people. This is the most recent data reported. Non-ed. So we're not talking about education, okay? Let's separate that for a second. 122 per 10,000 Arkansas government. Now, if you compare that number, which to you may seem like that's not very high, 122 people per 10,000 that are employed by the government that make your life fantastic, that are, making your life, and some of them do. Some of them do make the world go round. Well, not the world, but, some of them do have a purpose, and it's a good purpose. But let's compare that. And what you're going to see here is really just a philosophy that people don't want to have to reform because they don't want to rock the boat. But we are the victim. Arkansas is the victim in many ways. Well, I don't know. We voted for these guys, so we're not really the victims because we had a say. We just didn't see it soon enough that the Democrat Party and the National Democrat Party was no longer the party of JFK. It just took us a long time to figure that out. And I say that just by meaning JFK liked tax cuts. He thought smaller government was better. He thought that would actually increase the economy. Now, people on the left say that tax cuts hurt the economy. It's ridiculous. The people on the left now want the government to take everything you earn, put it into one big pot, and divide it up equally. But it's not really equal because, the people who run things like government employees, they're going to be really well taken care of. They're not going to be in the bread lines. I mean, that's the ideal. I mean, that's the battle at this point, folks. I don't know what to tell you. So Arkansas employs 122 people for every 10,000. Do you know the average employment of non-ed full-time equivalent of the surrounding states? How many does Missouri employ per 10,000? 90.85 people per 10,000. Missouri. They're a bigger state than us. They got more people than us. They employ 90 people per 10,000. We employ 122. Tennessee. Our neighbors to the east, Tennessee, 64.50 per 10,000. 64 people per 10,000. What's Arkansas? 122 per 10,000. You see, these are the reforms that need to be made, but they're not making them. They want you to. They don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that we're. It's not just our tax policy that isn't competitive with surrounding states. It's not just our regulatory environment that isn't competitive with surrounding states. We've got more licensing boards in the state of New York. It's the fact that the government in and of itself is so much bigger than it needs to be here, and they don't want to reform it. Well, they say they want to reform it, but they don't want to do it with the full legislative body. They want to whittle everybody down so they can control the result. What do you think? You think the bureaucrats want to go from 122 people per 10,000 down to 64 like Tennessee? Do you think they want to do that? Honest question. The answer is, of course they don't want to do that. And yet they're the ones that'll get trotted out in front of this tax farce and that tax farce to give them information that legislators take to the bank and make their decisions on. And we don't need 135 legislators free-thinking, asking questions and questioning whether or not they're getting accurate information. It should be a crime to lie to a legislator if you're a bureaucrat. It happens all the time. Louisiana. Oh, let's go to Mississippi. Mississippi is 118 per 10,000. Okay. All right, 118 government employees per 10,000 in Mississippi. We're at 122. That's not surprising. Louisiana, 95 employees per 10,000. Again, we're at 122. Let's go to Texas. They got some Tennessee numbers. Texas is also 64 per 10,000. Oklahoma, 96 per 10,000. Okay. On average, if you combine the surrounding states and that number, that specific statistic, which is how many people do you employ in the government, non-education, per 10,000. On average, our surrounding states have 28%. Let's go ahead and round it up to 30. 30% fewer people per 10,000 working for their state governments. 30%. Their government, and this is just a blanket truth. On average, Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and Oklahoma, their governments are 30% smaller than ours on average. 30% smaller governments, and they have more people than we do. There is a way to make it work. There is a formula that can make us competitive. 30%. That is a huge, as Donald Trump would say, a huge number. These are incredible statistics. I'm sorry I haven't given them to you until now. We have a bloated government. This is a text message I'm reading from David Crow, Mr. David Crow. We have a bloated government which requires excess taxes on citizens of Arkansas. Oh, that's a great point. What a great point that is. Think about that for a second. If our government, on average, in Arkansas, is, like these statistics show, 30% larger than our neighbors, well, that's going to require more money, right? That's not rocket science. That's going to require more money to run. With fewer people, by the way. So there's fewer of us than there is in surrounding states. low population, right? We got a low population. And that means we're going to have higher taxes in order to fund our giant number, our 30% bigger number on average, 122 people per 10,000. So that requires higher taxes on the citizens of Arkansas to compensate these employees. We have a taxing problem, he writes. We have a taxing problem. If we reduce spending to the average of surrounding states, let's say that one's not that clear, but I want to follow up on that statistic. But listen to this: if we reduce employment, listen to this. This is crazy. If we reduce employment in government to the average of those states, so out of the average, that's 87.81. If we take the average of every state around us, they have an average of 87.81 per 10,000 government employees. Assuming we paid every government employee an average salary of $50,000, which we don't. We pay some $50,000, we pay some $30,000, we pay some $238,000 or whatever Cindy Gillespie's making. According to these numbers, we would save $500 million annually. And they are trying, by the way, to raise our taxes right now about $500 million. That's what they just tried to get from us. Joe, who's on the phone? Who do we got?
John from White County.
All right, so we got John in White County. John, you're on the Paul Harrell program. I understand you got something important to say.
I don't know if it's that important, but it was kind of funny. You were talking earlier about the state employees getting off at 4:30, which I work for the state, and of course, we don't get paid overtime if we do work past 4:30. We're supposed to get comp time, but they really don't want us to do that either. So last fall, they had me working in another county, filling in for a position that was vacant. And the requirements are you leave where you start your normal office at 8 o'clock, and you got to be back there by 4:30. But because I worked a little bit of overtime without prior authorization and didn't get back to my office by 4:30, I got put on probation for 60 days and written up.
Because you didn't take off work at 4:30, you got written up?
Yes.
Hang on a second. So you actually you did your job above and beyond, and you got punished for it?
That's exactly it. Yep. I was sort of floored by it also. And I told them, I wasn't going to even ask for comp time or anything. It's like, and the problem was you're supposed to ask in advance that, if you're going to have to work over. And it was just one of those things where there was just more things that had to be done. I was out in the field taking care of them, trying to, get some permits issued to people so they could, go on with their business. And
like actually serve the population and make the government regulation process as painless as possible. Yeah, go on.
And that's what I get for it. It's like I've threatened to put frame it, put it on my walls, and it's like this is the typical thing that you'd expect in the bureaucracy, and see it every day of the year.
John, you're clearly one of the good government employees. I just want to say that.
There's quite a few others out there.
I know there are, but what kind of mentality is that? What kind of mentality is that? That basically you just that's crazy to me. That's the mentality, because that's the mentality of the private sector. What you were doing there, and they're actually discouraging that. They're perpetuating this idea that it is us versus government employees, because there's one mindset for those people who are in the private sector and another for who are in the public sector. John, can I send you a Liberty Machine T-shirt? Would you take one?
Sure.
Okay, good. Well, hang on the line. I so appreciate that you listening to the program, and I appreciate you doing the public service that you're doing for the state. And so stay on the line, and Joe's going to get your information. Okay.
Certainly.
All right. Appreciate the call. For those of you who don't know that, and that was John in White County. I'm hoping that is not your real name, John. So for those of you who missed the first hour, okay, you can go back and listen to it. But we attempted to call Asa Hutchinson's My Idea line, the his new website that you can submit ideas to make state government better. And I had a few, and so I figured, all right, let's just call them. Let's talk to somebody. You know, they're DFNA employees trying to staff these things. And I call it 438, 445, something like that. And we get an answer machine, and they say, I'm sorry, we're closed. Our hours are from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And I said, oh, okay, well, you know, whatever. That must be nice. Somebody texted and said, well, they must take 30-minute lunches, Paul. Just, you know, they must take 30-minute lunches. And so John from White County, he's responding to that event. And so what he just said was he got put on 60 days probation. Joe, did he say 60 days probation? 60 days probation for working past 4:30. He gets punished for working past 4:30. So they are running a pretty tight ship there when he was just trying to serve the people a little longer. I mean, that right there, folks, is part of the problem. I mean, if you had more, I know what, I can't believe that. That's unbelievable to me. But that right there is the pitfalls of government in a nutshell. The pitfalls of big government in a nutshell. The phone number to call us or text us, let us hear your story. 870-275-9799. It's the Paul Harrell program, The Liberty Machine. We'll be back in just a moment.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in this situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist healthcare program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal attack on his or her character. And if they admit to any wrongdoing at all, they must replace the word lie with words like misspoke, misstatement, misrepresent, or mislead.
Amazing! Excellent work, Susie. I feel like the student has really become the teacher. You will make a terrific addition to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language.
All hands on deck. This is a Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language emergency. Several politicians are scrambling after being exposed by some talk radio host. Let's move it, people. They need our help.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. You vote 'em in, and we keep 'em in. PHP Parody. If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Joe, Hang on. Here we are. All right, so we're back. All right, so Joe, I want you to recap what he said because you took the phone call first. Okay. From our listener there who was a government employee, and he had the courage to call in and say, "Hey, yeah, this is how opposite it actually is. You know, they have to shut down at 4:30, but then they punished me because I worked over 4:30. Now, so kind of recap what he already told the listeners, if you can."
Yeah. So John from White County was our caller, and he said that he was told, or his job that day was to go to a different county, go somewhere else, and perform his normal tasks. He just had to do stuff over somewhere else. Well, he worked a little bit harder because he had to get some stuff done that he needed to get done, some stuff for regulation work, and he didn't make it back by 4:30. He didn't make it back to his home office. Just because he wanted to work a little harder and get some of the regulation stuff done, so that way he didn't have to go back later, or that way he just get it done, serve more people,
essentially,
and the government or whoever.
Because he didn't get back right at 4:30.
Because he didn't get back right at 4:30. Before 4:30, he was written up and he was punished for 60 days probation.
So they would have rather he driven all that way and served less people. That's the government philosophy here. We would rather you had to drive. The government's saying, hey, this is part of your job. You need to drive over here to point A. You need to be back here at point B at a certain time. But they would have rather him served less people, and I don't even know what he was doing in whatever capacity he was. We don't know. I have no idea. But that's essentially that's a mentality that's producing the kind of reality, I think, that we all experience with state government.
That's definitely what it sounds like to me, that they were punishing him for doing his job a little bit more because he wasn't back where he should have been, so he would have served less people if he would have done so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds like that's it in a nutshell to me, Paul. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, that's incredible. But I appreciate the phone call. Again, the number 870-275-9799. It just goes to show you that there really are two competing philosophies. People want to, people in government want to sometimes ask, is it us or is it us versus them, and why is it like that? And there you heard John there. He's clearly a stand-up guy, and he's clearly somebody who's a hard worker. You can't work too hard. If you're working for the government, though, you can't work too hard, because if you work too hard, we might have to pay you some overtime. It's like, wow, that's such a ridiculous, I know what they're going to say. Well, we're trying to control the cost, and people could abuse it. Well, if somebody abuses the overtime system, you fire them. Right? That's what somebody in the private sector would do. But if you're working overtime and and you're actually getting the value of that labor, then you keep that person. That's completely two different mentalities. What else do we have here? Let's see. What do we have? I'm sorry. I've got these text messages coming in. I was trying to read them. Some of them are coming in right now. Yeah, here it is. Mark in Craighead County. If your work output exceeds the norm, you get punished for showing how awful the rest of the staff is. That's also because you would also expose everybody else who may, they may be like that they have to be back right at 4:30. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got to leave. I can't serve you right now. I have to be back right at 4:30, or I get punished by it. People maybe kind of like that. Hey, folks, I want to remind you to go to conduitforaction.org. Okay? That's conduitforaction.org. Go there and sign up for their updates, because their updates are, then you don't have to go to the website and everybody can check and see if they have a new article. You can just go. It's on the right side of the page. It's extremely easy. It's conduitforaction.org. And if you want to get lost on that website and just hit the back button a bunch, and scroll through all these articles, You're going to get really caught up. If this show is new to you in any way, and you're like, who is this guy? What's he talking about? I've never heard state government news like this. Well, then I would encourage you to go to conduitforaction.org and read all of their stuff, because it's a way for you to not just learn about it here on the show, but learn about it, on your own time, not just from 4 to 6. But and you can always get this program 24/7 as well over at paulharrell.com. 870-275-9799. That is the number. You can call us, text us, leave us a voice message. Sometimes we put your voice messages on the program the following day, so be ready for that. And that's all the time we have for today. It's Thursday, which means tomorrow is Johnny Cash Friday. Send us your requests. You can Facebook, Twitter, email, whatever you want to do, text. And Arkansas, we will see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday. Until then, be safe.